Today's focus is on intergenerational wealth. Anyone who is part of the sandwich generation, that is, middle aged adults who are caring for both elderly parents and their own children, will want to pay particular attention to this one. Nancie Taylor, Senior Wealth Advisor at Meridian Credit Union, joins me now to discuss. Welcome back to the show, Nancie.
A pleasure to be back, Candace.
I'm really excited about this conversation. You know, Dillis DeCruz from Meridian and Kathleen Kingsbury, we did a live about awkward money conversations, a Facebook Live about this. And so I think this is something most people will really struggle with, particularly when it comes to approaching your parents about money. So let's start there. When should you get involved with your parents' finances?
As early as possible. In my practice, I see a lot of times people wait till a healthcare crisis arises. And at a time where people are stressed because of the parents had a healthcare event and people are under pressure to have these conversations, they're a lot more forced. So we recommend, starting in your 50s, having simple conversations, and then as your parents start aging into their 60s and 70s, their financial awareness really starts to decline. So the more information you can get in that 50s and 60s stage to help support them in the event of a healthcare event, the better. And you can start having those conversations with all the other children involved as well. So it doesn't just rely on one person. So there's some great tips out there about how, as a family, we can all take a part in this journey about having the ability to support our aging parents down the road.
I think the first step is to normalize the conversation. It's really not a taboo topic. And it's not just, I think a lot of people think about their parents' wealth and end of life. And really, it's not just death. It's as you said, it could be illness. It could be where they're going to live in the future and how you're going to manage that, right?
Yeah. So when you're sitting down having these conversations, these are these great things that creep up that people question. So ask a lot of questions about how your parents feel about certain things like aging in place versus living in a home. Look at their finances together if they're comfortable with that. Understanding what income's coming in and expenses are going out. Avoid using words that are triggers. Try to keep it very open-ended. Ensure those conversations are a little short and more frequent versus these big, long family meetings that everybody kind of dreads. And try not to personalize with what you're hearing. Everybody comes to the table with their own personal background, their own family dynamics, their own, whether they have children or no children. So when parents start releasing this information to us, try to keep an open mind, try to keep these meetings short, and try to gather as much information as possible. And that's usually what I'm recommending in my practice when I'm talking to my clients about starting to have those conversations with their adult children about their personal finances and what kind of support they want as they age.
I'm curious, Nancie, do you ever work with people and their parents together as a financial advisor to have these discussions? Is that common?
It's not common. In smaller communities, it could be more common than in bigger rural centers. But we have great aging well guides that we give both generations, people that are in their 60s and 70s and people that are in their 30s and 40s to help them prepare if they have a financial event or a health event, but also to help the older people get their resources in order and their documents in order and things like this. So there's great guides out there to help organize them because it's hard to know where to start.
Right. And I would say at a very basic level, just even having all of those numbers, where the accounts are, what's held where, because as we know, we sort of have things all over the place. And what a scramble that is for somebody who doesn't even know where to start, right?
And 9 times out of 10, it starts when there's that healthcare event. So in a perfect world, it would be great to sit down with your kids to say, this is how your mom and dad feel about life support. And then the kids aren't going to want to hear things like that. It's pretty traumatic, but they'll remember those words in the event they have to decision and act on it down the road. And what a great gift you can provide them. So having all those conversations are such a gift for both generations.
So let's move back. Let's move on to having these conversations with our kids, because by having it with our kids, we are now making it easier for them to have the conversation with us when it's our turn to have that conversation about
Yes.
sort of our end of life wishes. So when do we start having these conversations with our kids, and is there sort of appropriate age to start?
So start as early as you can. You know, when kids are very small, and these are things they don't learn in school. It's not part of our education system. So starting small about finances and saving and different kinds of saving strategies with young children. And then as they start to head into their adult years, you're going to want to try to guide them as well about, because it's very overwhelming for that generation. So share experiences that you've had with finances, share the failures, share the successes, because we all learn from failing with our financial journey, and we learn from our mistakes. So this is great treasured information that we can provide our kids to help guide them. Really talk to them in a very non-lecturing way, and encourage them to go sit with your financial advisor to talk about it if it's something that, you know, mom and dad, they don't really know everything all the time, right? So sometimes you need a third party to provide those great conversations. We have books we recommend at each age of their learning journey, whether it's The Wealthy Barber to start with. And Bank of Canada has great tutorials, like 10, 15-minute tutorials on everything from understanding what a stock is versus all the different kinds of debt that's available. What's good debt, what's bad debt, different kinds of savings strategies. So Bank of Canada has, and there are many blogs out there. So we often will send our millennials that information, and parents love that because we're teaching their children how to be financially set down the road.
I just want to jump in here quickly too. And when you get to the point where your kids are teenagers, as I have two of them, there becomes a point where you no longer know how to tie your own shoes. And when you get to that point and your teens think that about you, it's a good time to hook them up with a financial advisor, because they will often listen to somebody else and not you.
Yeah, my son's a great example. He's 18, going into second year university. I've been trying to send him this great student budget I have that I give so many of my clients' children, but mom doesn't know as much. He doesn't see me in the same space as my clients' kids do. So I'm recommending he go sit down with one of my colleagues, and that's a prime example. But you know, kids today, they want to try to go it alone, and it's just very overwhelming on where to start and how to start. So a financial advisor can kind of walk them through the steps and baby steps along the way to help it resonate with them and prepare them for down the road.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time left, but let's move on to that sandwich generation, because that is where the stress lies. It's for the people who are currently managing parents and kids. Any advice there?
Yes. 1 in every 7 middle-aged Canadians are caregivers. We have 8 million nationally that are caregivers, the bulk of them being women. And this is kind of where I sit, being 54, is I have a mom that's had a stroke, and I have a teenager that's in second year university, and we're busy. So we have to really focus on us first. So we have to focus on making sure that our retirement plan is set, that we've done a really good job saving for the inevitable. To really educate ourselves on the resources that are out there, because it doesn't all fall on our shoulders. So the more we educate ourselves leading into it, when that healthcare crisis happens with one of two, you know, could be the child, it could be the adult, that we are really prepared a little bit more had we not read all the information on the support systems that are out there. Understanding what our parents' healthcare benefits look like, making sure that we resist the urge to tap into our own retirement plan, like our money, because the reality is a lot of us will have to shave our hours back to look after our loved ones. I have a client that has a mother that's aging, and she was in the middle of putting her in a nursing home and trying to figure out what that looks like and all the waiting lists around that. And her daughter got breast cancer, and she's single. So she had to take time off work and eventually retire to support both of those women in her life. And had she not done a good job at preparing, it would have been a lot more stressful for her. So I mean, she wasn't 100% prepared for what happened, but she was a little more prepared because she had had those financial conversations with me leading into ensuring her retirement was set before all these things happened. So if you're not sure your retirement's set and you have all those stressors on top of that, you can imagine it's a lot.
That's a really excellent example of putting your own oxygen mask on first,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to finances. You have to make sure you're taking care of yourself before you can take care of others. I want people to be able to connect, obviously, with you or a financial advisor at Meridian. So where should they go?
They should go to visit the Meridian website, which is www.meridiancu.ca. There's advisors that are in the community that you're living in, and just start those financial conversations because it's a great investment of your time and your loved one's time.
Okay. And I just want to point out to people that if they'd like to go catch the first 2 episodes of this masterclass we're doing on personal finance, they could go to whatshesaidtalk.com and find them there. Thank you for joining me today, Nancie. As always, this was very informative, and I love talking to you.
My pleasure. Look forward to our next one.